Welcome to the Vibrant Visibility Podcast. Being visible as a soul-led business owner isn't just about the practical strategies, marketing tips, and tech systems. It's also about the internal systems, the safety of your nervous system, the somatic connection, and the embodiment of being a badass CEO that will support you in all of the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. And I'm here to share all of that with you on this show. I'm your host, Shawnee Arsenault, a registered nurse turned visibility coach and business mentor for heart-centered coaches and healers. I created a six-figure coaching practice in my first year of business and scaled to multiple six figures my second year, all in the middle of getting pregnant with my first baby and becoming a new mama. If I can do this entrepreneurship thing, I know you can too. If you're ready to learn how to be a CEO in a way that feels aligned with your heart, become a lighthouse for the people that you're meant to serve, feel free to authentically express yourself and be a magnet for success, and grow your coaching business in a way that is sustainable and fulfilling, I can't wait to be in your ear along for the ride. Hello, my friends. How are you? I am doing a little nighttime recording session here because I'm just feeling very grounded. I'm feeling very centered. Nighttime is like my favorite time of the day. I am a night owl by nature. Whenever I was a nurse in the hospital, I used to work night shifts all the time, and I really thrived in the nighttime environment. I'm not a morning person. Daytime is great, but I don't know. There's something really comforting about being able to just sit here in my office at night. My baby's asleep. My husband's doing a workout, and I felt really called to just jump on here and share a little bit about this topic. And it's something that has come up for me recently with a lot of my clients and with a lot of the people in my community, people who aren't even working with me. I've been having this conversation over and over again. So I wanted to come here and speak on it a little bit. There's a saying that I use with my clients a lot, and I'm pretty sure one of my previous mentors probably said this to me, and that's where I got this from. But you always reserve the right to change your mind. And that's a saying that I use a lot in my sessions with my clients, especially whenever it comes to launching different offers or pivoting in their business. Like, you always reserve the right to change your mind. And like, there are so many instances that I can think of in my own personal life and my business where I've made a decision to commit to something, right? Maybe I sign up for a program, or I commit to a collaboration with somebody else, or something as simple as like saying I'm gonna go to an event, or commit to a cup of coffee with a friend. And then whenever it comes time for that thing to roll around, something feels off, right? Your body is like, nope. Or you get these little whispers of, oh, I wish I hadn't said yes to this, or I don't feel in alignment with moving forward with this. And there's this quiet, unspoken rule that, like, once we make a decision, we have to stick with that decision no matter what, whether it's a program you join, whether it's a boundary that you set, or maybe like a vision that you once had. Changing your mind can feel like a betrayal, right? It can feel like a betrayal to yourself or to others. I like to think about whenever I first started this business, I had such a huge vision of being a health and wellness holistic life coach, right? I never anticipated coaching primarily around business. And whenever I decided to fully own the business coach, the visibility coach title, which is what I feel so good with now, there was a part of me that felt a little bit betrayed by my pivot, by my shift in who I work with and what kind of coaching that I do, because it was very different from what my original intention with starting my business was. But I want to offer you guys a reframe here, that you're not the same person, right? You're not the same person that you were whenever you made that decision. And that's not flaky, right? It's not flaky. I like to think it's evolution. It's actually human nature for us to want to change our minds as we grow. So if this episode resonates with you, I'm going to break down a few things surrounding the idea of changing your mind. And if it resonates, I'd love for you to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone you know that's been second-guessing themselves, second-guessing their yeses or their nos, and just giving each other permission to pivot here. Okay, so the first part of this that I want to start with is commitment, right? The myth of commitment. We've been conditioned to believe that being consistent is a really great virtue to have, right? But again, what I talked about earlier with like that feeling of self-betrayal, like breaking a commitment can feel like self-betrayal. And also, I do feel like staying committed to something that no longer feels in alignment is also another form of self-betrayal. So it's almost like, what are you the most okay with? I am not shy whenever it comes to talking about launches and projects and things in my business that have failed. My first year of business, there was a group program that I was so adamant about launching. I was so adamant about it. And after a while promoting it and talking about it and inviting people into that space, it stopped feeling right. But I kept showing up. I kept doing it. I kept going because I committed to it and I didn't want to back down. I didn't want to flake out. I wanted to give it everything that I had because I was also afraid of what other people would think if I didn't continue following through, if I didn't continue to show up. How would it look to other people if I announced this launch and then backed out of it, right? But it didn't feel in alignment for me. And instead, I ended up it totally failed. I didn't end up enrolling anyone in the group. And I just kind of like moved on. But I've absolutely grown from that experience. And like now, whenever things don't work out, whenever a launch isn't going as planned, I am no longer ashamed to let my audience know that, hey, I have to pivot. I'm pivoting. I'm taking the cues, the signs from the universe that this isn't what's meant to be. And I'm pouring my energy into the places where I know it's meant to be. So having integrity isn't simply just, about keeping your word. It's also honoring who you are now, not who you were then. Right? Because as humans, we evolve, we change, we have different perspectives coming to us every single day. There's so many opportunities for us to change our minds, to change our perspective about something, to change our beliefs. And our bodies are changing too. Our bodies are processing information differently every single day as we learn something new. So where in your life or business are you staying loyal to an old version of you? And I want you guys to think about that because if you are constantly working yourself to the ground, working in your business or a day job or as a mom, right? If you're working yourself to the ground and it doesn't feel in alignment with who you are now, it doesn't match what you value now after the growth that you've experienced, after all of the transformation that you've experienced, all the support that you've gotten to change your belief systems, to change how you operate on a soul level. And if you're staying loyal to that older version of you, I mean, it's a recipe for burnout. You're going to get burnt out. You're going to get so exhausted and tired of continuing to put effort into a decision that you made a long time ago that no longer feels in alignment, right? So I think there's like a warped perception that people have of what commitment means and what it means about them. The next thing I want to do is talk you guys through something that I walk a lot of my clients through, actually. And it is what I like to call a somatic check-in, right? So the somatic check-in is you spend a couple of moments checking in with three different areas of awareness, three different areas of embodiment, right? There's the mental space, there's the mental body, the logical part of you that wants to keep you safe, right? That's where all the survival mechanisms live. That's where all of our like logical reasoning happens. And then you're checking in with the emotional body after that, right? The feelings, the guilt, the fear, the grief, whatever is coming up without attaching meaning to it, just honoring whatever emotions are currently present, no judgment. And then checking in with the intuitive body, the emotional body, the quiet knowing, the anchor, the truth. And so I bring up my clients through this all the time, especially whenever they are trying to decide about something, right? Whether it's life or business, if they're trying to make a decision, especially if it's a big decision, I always take them through this framework here. So I want to first talk about the mental body. Your mind, like I said earlier, your mind is built to keep you safe, not necessarily fulfilled. Logic will always try to talk you out of alignment. Okay. Logic is always there running in the background. If you've ever had a gut feeling that you ignored because your logical brain was like, oh, but this, right? the mental chatter that you can, like if you can recall some of the mental chatter that comes up, right? But I already invested the money. Or what if they think that I'm inconsistent? What if they think that I'm a fraud? Or it's too late. It's too late for me to change directions. That is a big one. That's a big one that I see a lot with my clients. Or like, I don't want to waste what I've already done. I've already wasted so much time. I've wasted so much energy. I have poured so much into this commitment. And it feels like it would be for nothing if I shifted or if I pivoted, right? Your brain will give you, I mean, you can even relate this to things outside of your business, right? Relationships, friendships. Your brain will give you all of the reasons to stay and to hold firm in that decision, even though you know deep down it's actually a no for you now. Okay. So a somatic cue that I want to give to you guys here is notice where that pressure to justify lives in your body. Okay. For me, it is definitely my chest. Like it feels heavy in my chest. And then I also feel it in my throat too, right? It's hard for me to articulate my desire to pivot, my desire to shift or change my mind because I don't want to seem flaky. So like it's almost like my ability to speak is affected by it. So where is that for you? Where does that live for you in your body? Like if you can think about all the decisions that you've made in the past, all the big decisions that you've made, or maybe a decision that's coming to mind that you regret. Whenever you feel that pressure to justify that decision, where do you feel it? And just remember the brain wants safety, okay? But safety isn't the same thing as the truth. So just pause here, place a hand on your body, on your heart, wherever you are feeling that sense of heaviness, that sense of tension. And take a deep breath and ask, is this thought, is this decision coming from fear or alignment? Now, the second part of this check-in is checking in with your emotional landscape, right? Your emotional body. So I say things like guilt and fear and resentment because those are the most uncomfortable emotions for me, right? These emotions scream louder than my inner knowing, right? And that's true for a lot of people, right? Resentment, fear, guilt, those are three emotions that I can think of off the top of my head that so many other people experience much louder than their own intuition, right? Especially when you're not practiced at listening to your intuition. So there was a moment where I committed to traveling for a personal matter, a personal event. The closer and closer it got to the time that we were going to travel, because it was a whole family thing. It wasn't just me traveling. It was me, my son, my husband. We had to board our dogs and everything. It was a whole thing. And the closer it got to that time for us to travel, I started getting so anxious. I started feeling it in my chest. I started feeling it in my throat. But I felt guilty, right? I felt guilty if I didn't move forward with these travel plans. There were going to be so many people that I was letting down. And so guilt convinced me to stay the course. Like I said, in my body, I can feel it. It just, and now that I can name it, now that I can name that the guilt is what made me continue on with committing to that decision instead of honoring what felt right for me at the time, it feels really freeing to know that moving forward, I don't have to be afraid of that. I don't have to be afraid of shifting and changing my mind because it does feel in total alignment with where I'm at right now. So I want you to think about when things like guilt or resentment or fear or anxiety, I want you to think about when those things make you feel like you owe something to somebody, right? Even if it's betraying your own needs. I find that this is a pattern with very highly sensitive and then high achieving people. Most of my clients fit this bill. And I just want to normalize that having these big emotions doesn't mean anything bad about you, right? It is normal to feel guilt about quitting or backing out of a commitment. It is normal to feel that. It's normal to feel fear of disappointing someone, especially someone you care about or look up to. It's normal to feel grief about outgrowing a former version of yourself that would have stayed or that would have pushed through. It's normal to feel resentment toward past decisions that you've made that maybe weren't in alignment. It's normal. Guilt, these kinds of emotions like guilt are sticky. Okay. It often means that like you're still trying to meet someone else's expectations instead of really anchoring into your own sense of self, into your own knowing. So I want you to think about a couple of questions here. Like, where do you feel resentment towards something that you've said yes to in the past? And what is that resentment asking me to reclaim? What is this emotion? Maybe it's not resentment, maybe it's guilt or fear. What is this emotion asking me to reclaim? The final part of this somatic check in is checking in with your intuition, your intuitive body, right? The quiet knowing. Your intuition won't always give you reasons. It gives you resonance. And I'll explain what that means. I'll give you an example. If you can recall being out in public somewhere, maybe you are at the park with your kids or at the mall or at the store, maybe in a parking lot, and you see someone that isn't doing anything bad, isn't saying anything bad, isn't acting crazy or anything, but there's a weird vibe that you get from them. Like there's some kind of weird feeling that you get with this person. Nothing's happening, but you get this like desire to just leave. Like you get this sense that like I don't feel safe. I don't know, something's off. That's what intuition feels like, right? Another example is, I come from a nursing background and I have worked in a lot of different, critical care type areas. I can count on several occasions where I would walk into a patient's room and I would, like, on paper, they would be fine. Their vitals would be fine. Their labs look fine. But I would walk into the room and I would immediately know, like, something's not right. Something's not right. I'm immediately getting the doctor. And usually it ended up, with us running a code or a rapid response team. That's intuition, right? That's that subtle but like undeniable knowing that we don't have to have a logical reason for, right? Our logical brain will try to rationalize, will try to justify like, oh no, it's not a big deal. Oh no, it's fine. This patient is fine. Or like in the case of you being in that public place with the person that gives you the weird vibe, like, oh, he's okay. They're not doing anything. I'm good to stay. And so I'd love to know if a story comes up for you whenever I say all of these examples, if you can think of a time where you trusted your intuition, or maybe even a time where you felt that gut feeling and didn't listen to it and what happened afterwards. Because intuition isn't loud. Intuition doesn't scream, it whispers. Okay. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of intention to hear it. So maybe even some prompts for you guys, some journaling prompts or just prompts to help you reflect. Where in my life am I overriding my intuitive yeses or nos? Right? Because intuition, I find, is typically that. It's typically black and white. It's typically this is a yes or this is a no. Well, okay. And there's also some gray area. There's also a I'm not sure yet, but it eventually leads to this is a yes, this is a no. What does my body say about the decision? Like whenever I have an intuitive yes or an intuitive no, how does my body tell me that this is a yes or a no? For me, if something is a yes, I feel like I can take a deep breath. I feel expansive, like my shoulders are back. I feel like I can sit up straighter. I feel confident. I feel more energized. And that doesn't stop me from feeling scared, right? Because I can still feel scared about something that's an intuitive yes. Like if I'm about to invest in something big, or if I'm about to make a huge life decision that feels intuitively right, but then my brain is like sitting here giving me all the reasons why I shouldn't. Um, I can tell that my body has these cues, right? It has these tells of when my intuition is the solution is, what the answer is. And so I want you guys to think about that. I want you guys to think about how your body feels whenever you are intuitively guided, even if your brain and your emotions might be leading you astray. And then another question I want you to think about is like, what would I do if I trusted myself without needing a reason, right? What would I do? What kind of decisions would I make if I were able to trust that intuition, if I were able to trust that inner knowing without needing an explanation, without needing a reason, without needing any kind of rational excuse? And that's just an invitation for you to start recalling moments where you have listened to your intuition and it worked out. Right? Our brain likes to look for evidence. So give yourself the gift of looking for the evidence. It's there. It's always there. You have however many years of life that you've been on this earth to find the evidence. Okay, so I want to make this tangible. there are a couple of examples that I want to offer here, especially for those of you who are coaches or who are entrepreneurs, business owners. Listening to your intuition and, again, reserving the right to change your mind if you feel intuitively guided to. These examples can really help illustrate that, right? So let's say that you have invested in a coaching container, right? You joined maybe because you had FOMO or they were having a really awesome deal. Maybe you were on like a really high pressure sales call and it never felt like a full yes, but you felt this like urgency, and like not the good kind of urgency, but the urgency of like, it's like a desperate energy, right? Maybe there's a coaching container that you joined where you felt that. Another example would be like an offer pivot, right? You launched something and halfway through you realize like, this isn't it. This isn't exactly what we need to be putting out there into the world. I actually want to take a different direction. I actually want to scrap this entirely, right? And then the last example that I can think of is saying yes too soon. Maybe you said yes to a podcast, a collaboration. You said yes to working with a client, right? But then it didn't feel aligned once you had space to feel into it. This is one of the things, and like we can get into a whole rabbit hole about human design. I'm a manifesting generator and I need something to respond to, and I don't always know right away, right? So a lot of times whenever people ask me to commit to something, I'm always like, give me 24 hours and I'll have an answer for you. And so that's not how everyone operates. That's just how I operate. But saying yes too soon can be a manifestation of you not listening to your intuition. And so in all of these scenarios that I just talked about, the real power isn't in sticking it out. It's in realigning as soon as you realize that you're out of alignment. Okay. And that is the opposite of self-betrayal. That is self-honoring when you do that. When you realize, as soon as you have the awareness that you're out of alignment, taking action on it and being fearless, being brave in that act. You are allowed to change. You're allowed to change your mind. You don't need permission to change your mind, but in case you need to hear it, I'm giving it to you anyway, right? You might get some flack. You might get some judgment, some criticism. You might get some unhappy clients. You might get some unhappy people in your audience, and that is okay, right? You're not stuck. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to change your mind about things. And it's human nature. So that's just a final reminder for you that it is human nature to change and to evolve and to honor the person you are now and not the person you once were. And you can honor the person you once were in little ways, but not in ways that are going to affect your growth, your transformation, your vision that you now have. If you're in that sticky middle space right now, I have 2 resources that I want to share with you guys. I have the somatic check-in worksheet that kind of walks you through that same framework that I talked about, that checking in with the mental body, the emotional body, the intuitive body. And then I also have another free worksheet called the Aligned Decision-Making Worksheet. And this is something that I offer so many of my one-on-one clients, especially as they are making some big decisions about pivots in their business, launches, things like that. So the Aligned Decision-Making Worksheet is going to walk you through kind of like that intuitive check and give you a process for having everything that you need to make a fully aligned decision, whether that's in business or in life. And if this hits home, I would love for you to send this to a friend who has been wrestling with a decision maybe, and creating that ripple effect of giving ourselves permission to change, to shift, to pivot. All right, my friends, I am sending you so much love, and I hope you have the beautiful rest of your week. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If this was helpful for you, subscribe to the show to make sure you're always in the loop when a new episode is out. And I would love to invite you to join me in the free Visibility and Tech Support for Coaches community, where we hang out and chat about all things visibility, tech, systems, and heart-centered business building. I regularly share tips and tutorials and go live every now and then, and it's just nice to be in a community with other like-minded coaches and healers. So you can join this free space at alignwellco.com/community, and I can't wait to see you there.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.